One. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this month's Wonder Series. This is a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun doing this. We love to answer your questions. We love to have you live on the program with us. So what is the Wonder Series? The Wonder Series is a monthly forum where we encourage you to think outside that box. We give you a safe space where you can ask questions and get the support that you need, that you are looking for in order to live that happy, healthy life that you dream of. Today's topic, I've been calling it What's Eating You, or What Are You Eating? And our goal here is to answer your questions about nutrition. You know, those questions that, you're too afraid to ask, or it's too confusing, so you don't bother. So that's what we're here to do. We are here to answer your questions. And I have 4 experts in the nutrition area. They all focus on something a little different. So any question you have, please let us know. I'm Denise Stegall. I am the CEO and curator of Living Healthy List and the host of the Wonder Series. I'm joined today by my special guests, Alexis Simmons, Kimberly Price, Maureen Vicente, and Suzanne Taylor. Ladies, thank you for joining us. I'd love to have you start just by telling us who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do. Just based on how everybody looks on my screen, I'll just call you one by one. Okay, Kimberly, if you would start for us, please.
Unmute myself first. I'm Kimberly Price. I'm in Des Moines, Iowa. I like to call myself a wellness concierge. The specialty, I guess, areas that I work in or have worked in over the years, I've done a lot of coaching. We have an office. My husband's a chiropractor. My overarching theme is really, I'm focused on aging, anti-aging in particular, and not aging in the way that we like to think about aging, wrinkles and gray hair and that sort of thing, although I know that's important too, but aging as a disease. And so when we really focus on the body as a whole, and we bring together that mind, body, spirit, that whole connection of all the parts of the body, and we age well, we also are able to prevent disease, lose the weight, balance the hormones, all the things that go along with that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kimberly. Alexis, hi.
I'm muting myself here. So my name is Alexis Simmons. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I have owned a business in skincare for the last 8 years, and I focus on the external aspects of anti-aging, keeping our body healthy from an external, more of a topical area of expertise. And a lot of people don't realize that, food has a lot to do with how you look on the outside, but there also are aspects of nutrition and food that can help you from the outside in as well. If you picture maybe an apple, when you cut an apple open, a lot of times, it will turn mushy, it will get brown. That's called oxidation. The same thing happens in our body. So the same types of things that can help from an internal aspect can help from an external aspect, just maybe with little twists and turns, whether it's from a technological and a scientific terminology, or it's from something that you just find naturally out in the world. So skincare, dermatology, external anti-aging, that's my focus.
Awesome. Thanks, Alexis. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, I'm Maureen Vicente, and I call myself a peak performance health coach. My background, though, is also personal training, functional nutrition. My approach is a very scientific, almost genetic approach to optimizing people's health and well-being. So I get a lot of people that come to me for fat loss, but I help them understand that's really just a symptom of something else going on in the body, and that we all really have different genetic potential versions of how we can look and feel despite the genetic template we're born with. So even if you have a family history of diabetes or autoimmune diseases like I have, obesity, through strategic nutrition and lifestyle tweaks, you can really optimize how you look and feel and create a lifestyle that supports optimal health and well-being and maximum genetic potential for you. So that's what I do.
Wonderful. Thanks, Maureen. Hi, Suzanne.
Good morning, everyone. I'm still recovering from a little bit of a cold here, so forgive my voice. I am a life and business coach, and I am probably unique because I take my background in, I know I'm unique, business coaching, my executive clients on nutrition, sleep, exercise, meditation, and mindfulness. So all those aspects of healthy living were in my background. Before I became a coach, started studying them when I became a coach. Holistic nutrition was going to be my focus. And then I realized that so much of nutrition was mindset. So it just led me on this whole journey of helping people in that well-rounded way. And when I approach my executive clients who are hiring me for their business and they find out that we're going to work for 10 sessions on them first, it's always a bit of a surprise, but I think it makes all the difference in the world when you're working on your business to be the best version of yourself first.
We have two guests with us today live, and I just want them to both be able to tell us their names, where they are, and then we'll start with questions they might have. So Luann, hi, please unmute yourself and tell us who you are, where you're from, and
Hi everyone. Denise, you're still breaking up a little bit, darling. Just so
Am I?
you know. Yeah, and your microphone got really quiet for a while. Anyway, I'm Luann Beekler, otherwise known as the Hug Lady, but that's just my side gig. I'm a business lifestyle coach is the language that I like to use, and I do very similar work to Suzanne over there. And I am located in Rochester, Minnesota.
Quick question, did my microphone get any better?
Nope.
It's not so terrible that we can't hear you though, Denise.
Okay, does that work?
Yes, that's better.
Very good. It's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Very good. Lauren, hi. I know you're here with us live. If you have a chance, you want to unmute and just say who you are and where you're from? A little bit about what you do.
Sure. Hi. I don't know why my video is actually not working. It's plugged in, but I'm mystery woman today. So I am Lauren Weinberg. I am a coach and a speaker. I help people design a life that works. I specialize in avoiding or recovering from burnout, and I try to help people stress less, put themselves at the front of the line to take care of themselves. I'm actually I trained at Duke to be a health and wellness coach and am national board certified. And I'm sorry, I was out at actually doing an event all morning and I just am getting some breakfast. So that's why I am muted and I am listening to everybody, but I will try to join the conversation after I grab a little something. That
would be great. So we're firing questions at our experts today. So if you have a question for one or more of our experts, just raise your hand and let me know. Okay. So I'm opening the chat so I can actually see it. Okay, so these are some of the most burning questions our audience, our clients have sent to me. I sent a message out on Facebook and some personal messages to people that that we know and the group at Living Healthy List also. So the most burning question, I kind of want to start with this one because it's a tough one. It's kind of the one, I think the big one that everybody has. And it is, what am I supposed to eat? Everything I read conflicts. How do I know what's right? So who wants to start? Just raise your hand, let me know. Okay, Kimberly, I'll have you start, and then Maureen.
So I think the first thing, you know, when I work with people and we talk about nutrition, even in my own journey, I would tell you there's no right and wrong. And the idea that the world puts out there that, you know, 1 week broccoli is amazing for you and the next week you shouldn't eat too, you know, you would, if you eat too much broccoli, it'll lead to something. I think we need to stop with the right and wrong and the good and the bad. Clearly we know that, overall, we can use generalities like packaged processed food isn't going to be as good for you as eating an apple, or, whole foods are going to be. And that's just common sense things. But when we get to specific diets where don't eat this and don't eat that, I think we really have to look at the whole person, and we have to look at what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And the only one that's really going to know that is going to be you. So a lot of it, it's a journey. It's this trial and error. Berries might upset your stomach. It's paying attention. And I think one of the most complicated things, and when I work with people, I really have them down to the detail food journal. It shows me how serious they are. It also gives me a pattern of what's going on. And it helps us look at the things that are working for them and not working for them.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, food journaling is definitely something that I think most people are afraid of because they don't really want to see what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Maureen, if you would like to add, please.
Yeah, I agree with everything Kimberly said. It is very individual, but the basics for all humans, right, is there's a difference between food and an edible consumer product. So that's one of the first things I always try to teach people is, I think we've made a mistake in our society by assuming that just because we can chew and swallow something, that makes it a food, right? Mm-hmm. So every time we eat something, we're giving our body information. And it starts off a whole series of physiological responses, sometimes neutral, but more often positive, domino effect, or negative. So it's really helping people understand from a place of education and knowing their body what is supporting them looking and feeling the way that they want to and what is not. And so, I have a lot of clients that say, oh gosh, am I never going to be able to eat cake again? And I said, it's not that, but I want you to really understand. Maybe gluten is the thing that's contributing to your migraines. And now when I eat this, I feel XYZ for the next 2 or 3 days. So you may not choose to indulge in that thing as often, but for your kid's wedding, that might be an is it worth it piece of cake. But now at least going in, okay, I'm going to have champagne tonight. I'm going to eat a little dairy and gluten. I'm probably going to be really bloated and uncomfortable and lethargic for 2 or 3 days, but it's worth it for me to share in that experience versus eating cake 3 times a week from your local supermarket that's in your office break room for that person's birthday you don't even like. And you don't understand why you constantly just don't really feel that great. And I think another thing that really holds a lot of people back from my own experience and my own health journey is the whole concept of everything in moderation. So I always tell people everything in moderation, including moderation, if you're sensitive to something, because one bite of something you're sensitive to can start an inflammatory process in the body lasting 2 to 4 weeks. So if you have celiac disease like I do, or some other chronic illness, and you're doing everything perfect, to create genetic optimization in your body, but then you grab that 2 bites of mac and cheese from your kid's plate or that little half of a cookie, even though it's not that big on a caloric scale, which I think people have a hard time breaking out of tracking and counting, that can keep people really feeling sick, even though it's 0.5% of what they've eaten over a 2-week period. So it's understanding that person's individuality. I do food sensitivity panels, even genetic testing to really help have that person understand what works best for them and then create a sustainable plan long-term that they enjoy. Because if it's not maintainable, anyone can do a diet for 30, 60, 90 days, So.
Right. I think one of the things that both of you said that you had in common was, especially in the beginning, is that tracking of what you're eating. Whether it's you do it for a week, for 2 weeks, or 2 years. I think it really is. I agree that it really is important. Without writing it down or putting it into an app, how do you know where you are? So I guess that's the question that I would ask our audience. How do you know where you are? If you're trying all these different things, you say, the question is, what am I supposed to eat if everything conflicts? If you don't really know what you're eating, you don't know where you should start. And I would encourage all of our readers to start journaling. If you don't do it now, start a food journal and see where, you know, you may be finding that you have some challenges. I know for me, what I noticed when I started journaling, food journaling, I don't know when I started this, probably 10, 12 years ago, was at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I have the munchies, something's going on in my body. And that was the time where I would kind of grab whatever was available. So now I know that I need to plan for that. You know, do I have a little bit of, is my lunch a little bit bigger? Do I have a little bit more protein? I wouldn't know that if I hadn't actually spent the time to write that down. So I would, again, encourage everybody to start that. Okay, question number
Well, and
2.
I think
Oh,
it's
go ahead.
one more thing I want to add to that. I think it's important too. You mentioned awareness around food, and you know, this idea that we believe because it's been made by a food company and it's in the grocery store that it's okay to eat. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just letting people know, you know, as you work with them, or even, you know, just in your messaging, that it's not just because it's out there, just because it says that it's edible, doesn't mean that it's good for you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think it's fun to have, especially when I work with families, they get into it with their kids. It's really cute. I'm working with a family who has a 6 and a 9-year-old, and I went over to their house last week, and the kids grabbed stuff and they're like, oh my gosh, can you believe how much sugar this thing has in it? And they started reading the labels. It was the cutest thing. They got into it. But, you know, a lot of the stuff that people think is healthy because of clever marketing, just because it says keto or gluten-free, or, you know, I was at Sprouts the other day and I laughed out loud because they have keto labels on everything. And I'm a big fan of keto. I don't think it's the best for everyone, but I like the way it makes me feel. But the water, the sparkling water, had keto labels on it now. And I was like, wow, okay, where's the sugar-free, gluten-free, calorie-free label? You know, and it's just, it just goes to show you like what people's brains are used to just picking up on and don't check. And I think we're too trusting with food companies. And so it's all about empowering people and educating them and what to look for so they can make the decisions that are really going to work best for them, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Suzanne, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that working with numerous male executives who were a little resistant to looking at their food, I used a really clever explanation of our food system, and it might help the audience. So our diets today are 100% different than they were 50 years ago, and 1000% different than they were 100 years ago. So that statistic appeals to a male or any executive. You know, if I'm dealing with an attorney, having a statistic in my back pocket, like, look at what our grandparents ate, and what about our great grandparents most likely only ate what was grown in their town or in their area, because there wasn't roads, there wasn't trucks. That, like, this has only happened within the last 100, 200 years. So our bodies just haven't caught up with this evolutionary process, you know, DNA wise, the stuff Maureen was talking about. So we're eating these things that are food like, most food made by 4 different companies. And if you think about that, when you walk into the grocery store, that most of the processed foods in this country are made by 4 companies, that's pretty eye-opening. Like, they're just turning out food-like products for us to consume. Other countries don't have that as much as we do. So it's just really interesting to me that it's changed in such a short period of time, that we really, with food like substances, our bodies don't know what it is. So how do you digest and use something that you don't recognize? And that can be really powerful when you explain it.
Yeah, I love that. I love having the statistic. I think it's interesting, you know, when you talk about also the food companies, the 4 big food companies that provide most of the boxed and packaged foods, and living in the Midwest, I think we have two of them, at least two of them here in the Midwest. And when you think Midwest, you think, heartland of America, you think pure, you think, wholesome. And I still try to live my life that way. And I know most of us do, but I think most of the people who are listening, kind of think of the heartland of America as really being this wholesome place, and has our, as a whole, as it has our best interest in mind. And I think it is important for us all to realize that the big companies, they're out there to make a buck. And so, okay. Next question I have. How do I speed up my metabolism? Is it real or is it a myth? Suzanne, I know you have something to add.
All right, I'll go first. So I believe it's a little bit of a myth, but without the correct amount of sleep, and it basically comes down to calories in and calories out. I'm kind of old school when it comes to that. You can't eat 1,000 calories a day of donuts and expect your metabolism to, right? So 1,000 calories of donuts or 1,000 calories of good, healthy food looks very different metabolism wise. So again, I think it's about the right exercise for you. And that doesn't mean that you have to exercise hard. It just means that you have to move more and move every day. So most of my female clients are, my age. So they're between 45 and 60 and having menopause set in, and 20 extra pounds come from nowhere and nothing else has changed. Makes you say, I need my metabolism to speed up. And really, you just need to move more and eat a little bit less. So that's where I'm at on that one.
Okay, Maureen.
Okay, so I believe 100% the opposite. It's in fact one of my favorite myths to bust with people in the beginning. I tell people, whatever you think you know about nutrition, I'm likely going to try to.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear your opinion.
Yeah. So there's a great documentary actually that I'd encourage everyone to watch if you haven't seen it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called That Sugar Film.
Mm-hmm.
Came out last year, and it's the first one that I've seen that publicly documents this exact thing, that it's not to say calories don't matter at all. At the end of the day, you have to create some sort of deficit. You have to encourage your body to essentially eat itself for breakfast instead of from your plate. But the body is a system of hormones, very complicated. And so to me, it's more about the scientific hormonal impact of the food that you're eating versus just simply eat less, move more. It'd be great if the body was that simple and it was a calculator. Our bodies are not calculators. It doesn't work that way. It's very small percentage of a bigger picture. And so in this documentary, this man who had an anti-inflammatory kind of paleo-ish template diet, ate 2,600 calories a day, and said, I wonder what would happen to my body if I ate more sugar, kind of in a standard American diet, and not from junk food or other things, but from healthy things like smoothies, fruit roll-ups, granola bars, things like that. He had a nutritionist, doctors, they did lab work, blood work. He exercised the same amount. Everything else in his life was the same, minus what he was eating in terms of a macronutrient breakdown. Same number of calories, 2,600 both times. He gained 15 pounds in 6 weeks, got diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You saw the change in his personality and everything else. And I know from personal experience, my body, I was vegan for 5 years at the beginning of my healing journey. I was a collegiate athlete before I figured out what to eat for my autoimmune disease. I was working out 4 hours a day. I was counting macros. I was eating a lot less food than I do now. And I was 30 to 50 pounds heavier than I am now. So I am the leanest I've ever been. I work out the least that I ever have. I probably need to work out more for other health reasons. I've just been lazy with my traveling schedule, so I get to be better at that. I probably eat 2 to 3 times the amount of calories now than I did back then. So I think it's just a very, very, very small portion of really helping people figure out what for their unique body, based on their genetics, their chronic illnesses, their goals, their age, their hormonal system, which foods activate insulin, which foods activate glucagon, which is a fat burning hormone. And I think if eat less, move more worked, we wouldn't really be as fat and sick as we are in this country now. So that's my 2 cents.
So I'm going to respond with mute. I totally agree with you. But yes, and I will say that for me personally, none of that worked. None of it. None of it. None of it. From food testing to keto to paleo to moving more to lifting more to not lifting more to doing more cardio. Nothing, nothing, nothing except getting more sleep. That's the only thing that has made a difference on the scale. Now I eat pretty darn good. No sugar, no dairy, no gluten, nothing white. So, but still, as soon as I hit 50, if I was eating like this now at 48, I would have dropped 30 pounds in a month. I've only lost 5.
So
So-
oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Kimberly.
sorry. So what I love about this, just listening to both of you, so I do a lot with hormones and adrenals.
Mhm.
And so sleep is absolutely hands down the number one thing that I recommend for people across the board. I don't deal with food. I don't deal with any of that until I deal with sleep, because it really is, so much happens in your sleep.
Absolutely.
But you tie that to your hormones. So when you're not sleeping, for example, testosterone, we're replenishing testosterone as we sleep, which, testosterone is a key player in a lot of things that have to do with, our body's a system, and it's all, and I'm not going to talk the science of this, but for me in the practice and how I work with people on the back end of things behind the scenes that I don't talk with, unless my client is very scientific, I don't talk about is the natural processes of the way that the body works as we go into perimenopause and menopause are very different than they were 50 years ago. We are maxing out our adrenal systems. And in maxing out our adrenal systems, as we get into that age of perimenopause and menopause, our adrenals aren't kicking in and doing the work that they're supposed to be doing as our ovaries are shutting down. And that's where the weight gain and the inability to lose, I mean, this is a very simplified version of all of this, but that's where this is all at. So when Maureen was talking about, sugar and the way we process that and the way that our liver detoxifies and insulin levels and insulin resistance, I mean, all of these things go together. They all go together. And, cortisol is a key player in this. And again, when we're talking about hormones, and, if we look at people's cortisol levels over time, over the years that we've been living versus the years that our parents or even our grandparents lived, very different. And so all of these things, if we want to really simplify and look at things, we've got to we can't pick one thing. We can't simply just say more sleep. It's a huge helper for sure, but we've got to look at the whole picture. Has somebody been on birth control? That affects you your whole life. It genetically changes you if you've been on birth control. And that affects everything in your body. Our adrenals are hugely important in things. And we don't do enough to look at the adrenal and the hormone imbalance that's going on. And we focus too much on movement and, sugar versus no sugar. Those are all important, and nutrition's important. But we really have to kind of put the two together, because it's the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. What do we do first?
So it really is that whole kind of, we all talk about, holistic living, and it really is, this is a question. It is looking at the whole person, the whole situation. And, just look at all of us on the screen. We all look different. We all have, we're tall, we're short, we all have these different backgrounds. And so it's, we look different. So why would we think that we wouldn't be different on the inside and what's going on with us?
Well, the one thing I want to say too is I think we can all, myself included in the past, get so attached to one thing or so dogmatic with one approach and not allow our body the flexibility to change over time and for what works for us to change with it. There's periods of time where intermittent fasting did wonders for my inflammation, how I looked, how I felt. And then there's times where eating 3 meals a day felt more supportive, or being higher carb within a paleo template versus more keto, and so I think it's, and especially as women, like as we age or on birth control, getting off, pregnant, it's allowing us to really always be connected with our body and think, okay, what works for me really well now might not be the same thing that feels best for me 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I see that a lot with people when they hire me. They say, I don't get it. It can't be the bread. It can't be the this. I've eaten this my whole life. I'm like, well, maybe that's the problem. It's kind of the chronic damage over time, that has now caused this. And maybe it's not, but it's like, we get to figure that out and get you feeling the best you can now and be flexible for the rest of your life too. It's this ongoing journey and relationship with yourself, because we do change over time. We change environments, we change where we live, altitude, travel, stress levels, which, sleep, cortisol. All of it's constantly fluctuating.
That's true. Luann, I think you had a question or comment.
So first of all, I'm really loving this conversation. And what I'd like to say on behalf of others who will listen is I'm more of the client in this case, listening to this conversation. And what I love about all three of you is it's a very individualized approach and looking at the big picture of everything that's going on in your life. And home at the Mayo Clinic, I sit here wondering why the doctors aren't cueing into some of these things for myself, or perhaps. I went through a program where I lost about 25 pounds, and it wasn't supplements or anything. It was all about the psychology of food and how your body reacts to it, and really understanding what my body was reacting to when I ate something. And then I couldn't maintain even what I learned after that. And now I'm asking my doctor, do I have an adrenal problem? Do I have a hormone problem? And wow, Kimberly, that hit me. It's like I had to have a hysterectomy and had my ovaries removed in my mid 40s, and totally changed my body. And I didn't realize that was probably part of it. But not once has a doctor said to me, hey, should we do some testing on this to help you with that? So obviously we need you ladies, because we're not getting it from the medical community. And so that, again, is another comment I want to make for our audience, to go look for the right people that can help you take a look at this across the board, everything that's happening in your life. So thank you, ladies.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Luann, because for me on my journey, having my, knowledge that I have, I went to my family doctor about 3 years ago, with a list of blood work that I wanted taken. Not only all the thyroid stuff, but all the hormones and the cortisol. And I wanted, the cortisol test that goes for 3 days, where you test your urine for 3 days. And he looked at this piece of paper and he was like, where'd you get this from? And this is my family doctor, who's a super nice guy. I've had a relationship with him for, 15 years. Where did you get this from? I'm like, you know what I do for a living, right? Like, I decided this list. And he said, all right, I'll write you a script, so your insurance pays for all of this, all of these tests, but I think this is ridiculous. And I said, no, I'm in adrenal fatigue. I know it. So I need to address that. And he looked at me and said, well, you would know more about that than me.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I
That's the problem.
think that, we just have to have grace with a lot of the
Yes.
doctors, because
Yes.
I was originally pre-med at UCLA, 18 years ago. When my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer and had genetic testing done, it was negative. And that's what kicked off this whole thing for me, was environmental cause of disease, preventive medicine, nutritional therapy. And I thought, okay, the hysterectomy, all that stuff might help. The chemo might kill it. She doesn't have cancer because she's deficient in chemotherapy, right? Like, what's the root cause? And then I got my own health stuff. So, traditionally trained MDs, they're just doing what they're taught. They don't have, they have really no more than beyond 2 or 3 weeks of USDA food pyramid nutritional training in medical school. So I think conventional medicine is super important in many cases, but it's just empowering yourself. I love that you're signing on to things like this, Luann, and like looking, it's that holistic approach. They get to be one percentage of your treatment sort of team. Like, I'll always be on my thyroid meds. So I'm grateful for my thyroid medication now from Western medicine, but I learned myself nutrition and lifestyle changes I could do to get my Hashimoto's and celiac into remission. So it's taking what they say with a grain of salt when it's a little bit out of kind of their scope of knowledge. Like, it's called practicing medicine for a reason, because that's what they're trained to do. It's very pharmaceutically dominated, but I will say, I think a lot of them now are realizing that there's a gap and starting to think more outside of the box and starting to do things like get functionally trained. There's a lot of great chiropractors out there that will do additional testing and things like that. So I think it's just up to us to help continue to educate people about where everyone gets to play a part and sort of a holistic approach to you living the healthiest life that you can,
Yep. I agree.
And I
Luann-
think it's important too, and we've talked about this, it's not a this or a that. And it's that way with medicine versus, I'll call it complementary care, because I feel like that's a really good alternative, would be a this or a that, alternative versus medical. And I think the idea here is we need to be complementary in what we do. And I'm doing a functional med course right now where the focus is on cancer and complementary care. And the whole idea behind that is that we do need medicine. We do need chemos at certain times and radiation. Is it the best that we're ever going to have in treating cancer? Not necessarily, but it is what we have now. So while we have this now, we're looking at how do we keep patients alive and give them the best quality of life that we can in survivorship. And so what can we complement these treatments with in order to preserve cells and, make survivorship better, so that the patient can have a better quality of life. So I think that's important, Maureen, that we, that people understand it isn't a this or a that. It is really, how do we combine these two things and where and how maybe it isn't that the medical doctors get educated on it. Maybe it's a partnership of those that aren't in the medical world partnering with the medical doctors, and everybody stays within their expertise, but they work together.
Yeah. That's actually, Lauren, I do see you. That is actually the whole point of what we want to do with Living Healthy List, is we want to help people. We want to be that connection for people. And, just the conversation we're having now, this is going to help so many people. And, and mostly women. The great thing about it is, the women listen to us and follow us, and then that helps their families. So truly, this is really, it's an amazing conversation we're having, and I appreciate it. Lauren, I know you had something to add.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that I feel like we were all, like, what I'm listening to is all different sides of the same, like, hexagonally shaped sphere, like it's all interconnected and everybody's sort of like representing a side. And I think there's a lot more commonality here than confusion. And so bravo, I think that's awesome. Maureen, I just want to tell you that is a heck of a microphone. I'm just digging that microphone. I want to go get me one of those just for show, really. I don't even need to plug it in. But I really like it.
Doesn't it make me look so professional?
It's
It
so
does.
good.
I went
Yeah.
to I got booked on a bunch of podcasts. I went to this New Media Summit, which was amazing. And they gave everyone these microphones in the audience, and the podcasters required that you had a high quality professional microphone. So it's just a
Awesome.
lot easier than my built-in, so I'm like,
For
oh,
sure.
This thing.
Yeah, for
or the
sure.
headphones that no one seems to ever be able to hear me on. So
It's
thank you.
awesome. I love it. And I just want to say, I mean, like, so I was trained in, I say I work in burnout, but I was trained in health and wellness. I was trained at Duke. And yeah, they want all of us health coaches to be out there, hopefully working in concert with physicians. And it's not just an attention issue, it's a time issue. I mean, there are realities about physicians' practices that just don't allow them the space to go as deep as you need to. And you can hear how individual it is that we're all saying. So, yay that all, you coaches are out there doing the nutrition thing. So important to give people that not alternative, that addition to going to seek the medical care that they get. So yeah, hopefully most of our doctors one day, that we're like, they're working on the codes, right? For insurance. They're at a class
Yes.
3 now. And when they get to a class 1, people can get insurance reimbursement. So if you guys are not national board certified, go do that, because that will help you get insurance reimbursement one day, hopefully in the not too distant future. I had a comment and a question. So my comment is, I find it's hugely important for me to help my clients when doing this kind of work, to work on self-compassion and self-respect. And I just just thought maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit. The willingness to make that effort. You have to be kind to yourself and respect yourself enough to make that effort when you're talking about changing habits. So there's that aspect. And the other thing is, do you guys have a good resource, like books that you like, or besides the movie that you mentioned, like to discover what is your best fit dietetically or nutritionally? To find out about adrenals, how can people further their own journey with all the stuff you guys are talking about?
That would be actually if you do have something, talk about it briefly, then if you would add it to the chat. This way we have those resources, and we can make sure that everybody gets those.
Okay, I'll share. I feel like I've been talking so much. I was waiting to. Yeah, the self-compassion thing's huge, and it's very individual. I work with a lot of male executives, and they're just like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. It's really more of a lifestyle tweaking approach. And then I work with some other people too, mostly women, some men, where it is more of an emotional thing. It's like, I can give you the education, but the breakdown is in the self-love. It's in the self-sabotaging behavior. It is, which I relate to. I've suffered from various forms of eating disorders, disordered eating over the years, and a lot of that mental downward spiral. So I can relate to that. So it is just totally different with every person. Sometimes it's more heavy on the self-love, self-care to make the changes necessary to support their body. And with other people, it's like just very scientific, facts-based. So again, it's that individual holistic approach and being able to really identify what we need in our health journey. What's causing the health breakdown? Is it lack of education? Is it lack of self-love? Is it lack of knowing what to eat? Is it just over stress, lack of sleep? And creating that sort of path moving forward that addresses really the root cause and gives the right education, support, and accountability over time for those permanent changes to really help someone look, feel, and perform their best.
Awesome.
So
Thank you. And ladies, if you do have those resources, if you would just put them in the chat. Thank you. Well, I'm going to change gears a little bit. And, we were talking about, kind of what we're putting in our body and things that we can change. But I want to talk a little bit about this question. and it's about vitamins. You know, it's more about, you know, we know we should be eating, you know, more vitamins, more minerals, but what are the ones, how do we know what are the good ones for, you know, for our complexion, for that, you know, that our external view of ourselves. You know, we all know that if we look good, we feel good. I mean, it just is something that we know that we feel. So this one, I'm going to start with you, Alexis, on. So somebody wants to know, you know, what is it, you know, how do they find that glowing skin naturally, you know, with you know, and nutritionally?
Yeah, you know, and I did want to say something to speak and kind of maybe connect the two topics. The topic, you know, we just approached and just went over about self-love. And I find that, you know, confidence is really what it comes down to. If we have confidence in ourselves, that really can affect everything. So when we finally, and again, that's, you know, the journey, right, is to get to that place of confidence. And I find that unfortunately, and especially for women, is an external thing. Most of the clients that I see that come to me are suffering from something that they are either embarrassed of or uncomfortable with, or, you know, it's weight, it's how they look, it's their hair, it's their skin, it's something external that can change. And you know, talking about the questions of antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, things that are good for internal and external aspects, those are going to affect confidence because they're ultimately going to affect both the internal and external looks, which ultimately ends with confidence. I would say, you know, there's kind of a misconception that what you eat is going to affect the outside all the time for each person. Again, going back to the very beginning question we had, for every person, it's different. Some people can eat KFC every single day and they don't gain a pound, they don't get a single breakout. Another person can have a Snicker bar once and they've got like a full-blown acne breakout for like a week and a half, or, you know, gain 10 pounds off just one Snicker bar. It really does come down to person. At the same time, another big myth with antioxidants and minerals and consumption of them is that a lot of people think, you know, if I'm drinking tons of water, that will help, you know, get everything to the outer layer. It'll help me stay hydrated. It'll do all this stuff. When in fact, if you drink too much and you're not paying attention to your body, it can do more harm than good. You can flush out those minerals and vitamins before they even reach the surface of your skin, before they absorb. You can flush them out. So yeah, does come down to person basis. When it comes to vitamins and minerals, and just from my experiences, what I've researched, what I've found in my studies on an external aspect, is just kind of remembering the main ones for internal, and the best way to remember them is knowing, you know, those main ones that we would consume are also the ones that are great for topically applying, with the exception of a few. Vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin, you know, like biotin, all those ones that we're super familiar with hearing, they are amazing, both internally and externally. However, there is something to be said about like vitamin C. A lot of people think, you know, I need vitamin C internally. Everybody thinks they need it externally too, but it's really only absorbed in the skin in certain aspects. A lot of companies will boast vitamin C, saying it's great, but unless it's in the form of ascorbic acid, doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't absorb. It sits on the surface. It washes right back off. It's not strong enough to affect it. Versus when you consume vitamin C, it's just great all around. Same thing with vitamin A. When you consume vitamin A is great for immunity, for your vision, for, you know, just all around everything. However, when you apply it, a lot of people tend to find vitamin A in more natural substances. And a vitamin A in a natural substance, you tend to get trace minerals from the soil it grew in, the acid from the rain, some of the pesticides. You can cause more damage than you can good. So I usually let people know, you know, if they're going to look for vitamin A, just like with vitamin C, look for the ascorbic acid. If they're going to look for vitamin A, look for a retin A or retinal, more the clinical world in that aspect. But again, same thing, you know, it can depend on the person. It's like there's those key things that you have to be really careful with. Some are good, some are not, but when you use them both for internal and external, they can really affect it as long as you're using the right form.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer that?
Yeah, it does.
I can keep going.
Yeah, no, well, definitely. Well, what I was just thinking, as you know, we mentioned earlier, you know, we talked about, you know, the food companies, and how, you know, the marketing and what they're putting out there. And I think it's the same in the beauty world, we'll call it. You know, I know I've tried things that, you know, they tout on television and they think it's great. And I think I actually showed you the photos. I had tried a cream a couple of years ago that put it on in the evening. The very next day, my eyelids were swollen and I couldn't see. And this is a product that you can buy anywhere, you know, at almost any store, Walgreens, Walmart, you name it, it's out there. And there's a very famous woman who talks about it. And so it's one of those things, like, we really do have to pay attention to the marketing piece, but also individuality. You know, this product may be great for 99% of the other people, but for me, it just didn't work. And I think so. And so we kind of keep going back into that that same topic where, you know, as much as we want to answer, you know, this is the answer to the question. The answer is it's this, or this and. So what else additionally do you have for us to tell us a little bit more about your kind of take to nutrition and
you know, for again, I'm external. I'm all about, you know, the looking, the feeling, the healthiness of our outside organ. Skin is the largest organ on our body. Keeping in mind too that a lot of people have, you know, a fear of certain types of ingredients when really our body only absorbs 60% of what's on it. So 40% of some of the things people would deem are scary, they don't absorb. They tend to sit on the surface. That's how the FDA has approved them, is because they don't get into the bloodstream. That being said, yes, there are scary ingredients. You do still need to be careful. So some of the ones that, you know, I tell people, if you're looking for something in correlation and collaboration to remember them easily from a nutrition internal and a nutrition external status, look for things, again, the things we're familiar with hearing, like fish oil. We're supposed to take fish oil all the time. A fish oil that you can relate to on a topical term would be DMAE, which basically what that stands for is a diethylaminoethanol, which you don't need to know that. But basically what that does is you can find them in lots of fishes, lots of fish, but they're really good in skincare products. So DMAE, they're great for fine lines, great for wrinkles. I'm a big fan of apple cider vinegar. If somebody internally takes it, you know, it's great. I think there's conflicting views on what it does internally, but I know for some things like diabetes, it has been proven to help with, you know, acid in general can just really flush out your digestion. So externally as well, acids, apple cider vinegar can help, but acids in general are really good externally for elimination of acne, blackheads, kind of minimizing pores. Another external aspect for the women who are listening, maybe check with your doctor before you try this, but I've seen numerous cases which will help with yeast infections, externally applying apple cider vinegar, which is such an interesting concept. But again, topically, some of these ingredients that we can, you know, attest to the inside can also help with the outside, excuse me. The one I do like to talk about for scarring, a lot of people come to me and they say, you know, I have a scar, I need a fancy scar cream. I'm like, you know, honestly, it's just hydration. All those fancy scar creams, all they have are like vitamin E and like onion extracts, things that are going to hyaluronic acid, things that are going to pull in hydration. So for people who are looking for, again, just something they can relate to the inside and the outside, if it's scarring, vitamin E is amazing. It's in a lot of skincare products. They don't need to buy something really fancy and expensive. When you get a vitamin E, it's just vitamin E. There's really no different formulation. So I tell people, go to the store, pop open one of those little tablets of vitamin E you would internally take, put that on the scar. It's just the hydration aspect. Zinc is great. Biotin, I mentioned that. There's really a lot of them. Anything that you could think of as an antioxidant that would help internally would generally help externally, just because where you have, and I mentioned at the beginning here, you know, an apple, where you have this process of oxidation in your skin, your cells are not functioning the same on an external or internal standard as they possibly were when you were younger. When you have antioxidants internally and then you apply them externally too, they're going to help each other. You're fighting both aspects at the same time. So just eating healthy but also applying things on the outside and paying attention to some of those words. Again, vitamin C is an ascorbic acid, DMAEs, retin-A's, those types of ingredients that are just really antioxidant names in more of a skincare terminology. Those are going to do a ton. So honestly, if you just search antioxidants and skincare, all these would come up.
Awesome. Alexis, if you would, could you put that some of that information in the chat for us so people could, again, see what they should be looking for?
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to kind of tie this in with one of these questions. People want to know, how do they incorporate healthy habits into their daily life? And they're asking, you know, what do I eat? How do I drink? How do I eat? How much sleep? All, you know, kind of when we talk about that holistic, how do people incorporate it into their day and make it part of their new norm or new happy, healthy lifestyle? Sue, Kimberly, Maureen?
I'm happy to address how to take out. I usually recommend taking out the one bad habit. What's your number one negative habit first? And everybody knows they have one, right? What's your number one habit to delete? And then what's your number one habit to install? And we work on that first. And I think really for each person, it's unique. And for each person, depending on their goals, whether it's just having more time in their day, doing better in their business, or losing weight, there's a habit that's affecting your progress on that, whether it's self-sabotage or, you know, eating the wrong things, doing the wrong things. But again, it comes down to that individual approach and assessment. And also, I typically, before I work with somebody, I have them do a character strengths test, which is based in positive psychology. And what that little sneak peek into the person's personality does for me is it lets me know what their top strengths are. So if one of their top strengths is persistence, I know I don't have to worry about them dropping off of what I'm telling them to do or asking them to do or changing, right? But if that's down at the bottom, I know that change is going to be a little bit more difficult. If love of learning new things is down at the bottom and not up at the top, like me, number two, I know that I'm going to have to do the leading of the way with the education piece. And then a person like me who has the love of learning, they're going to want to know it all. They're going to want more information. They're going to want books to read. And having that sneak peek into someone's personality before I meet with them lets me know how to prepare for them. So I would say, you know, really knowing yourself, again, that comes into tapping into your own body's wisdom, right? What's right for me. I knew there was something wrong with me. And I just had to go and find what it was. So, but a lot of people don't have that ability to tap in and say, I know there's something wrong, something's not right, and let me go find the help I need. So that's what's so great about what we're doing together.
Yep. Awesome. Kimberly, do you want to add, Maureen? Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to leave it at that. We to incorporate into, you know, health and wellness, you want to incorporate your new healthy lifestyles. Again, I think it really does tie into the one thing that we always talk about. It's individual. I love the idea of taking an assessment. I know I've taken that assessment that Suzanne mentioned. I think it can be really eye-opening to do something like that, even if it's just for yourself. Because we think we know, you know, ourselves, but also we also tell ourselves fibs. You know, we think, well, I'm not really like that, but you really might be. And so I would recommend taking one of those self-assessment tests. Suzanne, if you would, could you put link or the name of one in that you use into the chat? That would be great. We just have a few more minutes, and I want to just, this one, we kind of answered this question, but I think if I don't use these words, people will not, they won't catch it. How do you avoid the crash diet when you want to lose weight and you've tried everything? What's the one thing that you would say to the person asking you this question? If you had one piece of advice for them, what would that be? Please, Maureen.
Don't ever crash diet, ever, ever, ever. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, it might work short term, peel water weight off, muscle this, it's going to mess with your hormones. You're going to gain it all back. You're going to slow down your BMR. You're going to be miserable. So it's really just, I always like to help people understand you don't have to lose weight to be healthy. You have to be healthy to lose weight. We focus more on health. We focus more on how you're feeling, of which ideal body composition is a nice bonus. And so we take the focus off of that and focus on looking, feeling, and performing your best. And how do we get to do that in a way that's fun, as most fun as it can be when you're making changes, and maintainable long-term for your needs, your personality, your lifestyle. And yeah, that's what I would say.
I love it. Thank you.
Ditto.
I would echo that. And in addition to that, I add in just some foundational work. I think going back to the core of, loving yourself, knowing where you're at with things, and then incorporating in, what is a person's lifestyle? What are their goals? How willing are they to do something? Is it something that they've been forced into, or is it something that they're exploring? And remembering this is a journey. So there's never going to be one answer, ever. So for those people out there that think that there's a quick fix or a one answer, to the question of weight loss or whatever's going on in your life, there's never going to be one answer. It's a willingness to continue to walk the path, continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to make changes, and enjoy the journey along the way. It doesn't, I say one of my taglines is living healthy doesn't have to be hard. And it really doesn't. It can be enjoyable, and you can love your life and you can enjoy your life, but it does take some work too.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, we're just about out of time. Before we go, I would ask, ladies, if you would, just let everybody know how they can find you in the chat. If anybody has questions, you can always connect with us here at livinghealthylist.com and go to where it says contact. That information comes directly to me at Living Healthy List. And if it's a question that I can answer, I will answer it. If it's a question for one of our experts, I will make sure that they get that information and that they will connect with you. I would like to thank all of you ladies. Thank you for joining us today, our guests and our speakers. This has been a great conversation. Truly, we could probably talk about this for the next 4 hours. But I don't think I think our audience probably thinks an hour is good, which makes me think that we need to do another one of these conversations and answer some more questions and maybe bust some myths. Maureen? Next month, so this is a monthly forum that we do here on Zoom. If you are finding us, if you're new to us, we're here every second Tuesday of the month, and that information will be on our Facebook page. It will be on our website, so you can find us there. The next conversation will be on April 14th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and our topic next week is Move More and Stress Less. Thank you again for joining us for the Wonder Series. I'm Denise Siegel, CEO and curator of Living Healthy List, where we are your one-stop for answers to health, wellness, personal development, and a little bit of fun.